Hi, this is the Tolkien Curmudgeon. I'm here to talk about The Rings of Power, Season 2, Episode 5. It's a miracle! Oh, what? What's a miracle? Well, it was less awful than the last episode. In fact, I could get through the whole thing without wanting to turn it off. It wasn't that big of a drag. It was a lot better. One of the reasons it was better was it was at least an attempt to write more original dialogue rather than rely so heavily on what Eric Kane calls rotten Easter eggs. There were only three as far as I can remember. Let's see, they took the far green country under a swift sunrise, almost quoted verbatim. And then there's a time when an elf is giving advice to King Gil-galad, and she says, you must send aid, which is kind of the opposite side of when Aragorn says to King Theoden in the Two Towers movie, you must call for aid. So it's a little bit similar phrasing. And then there's the time when Gil-galad said that we cannot defeat both Adar and Sauron, which was kind of like what Elrond said, we cannot defeat both Sauron and Isengard. So, but that was just a few times like that. It was back to back to back, as I said in the last episode. So, congratulations, writers. You at least tried to do something more original. All right. And also, amazingly, I was happy, was they concentrated on really the only two stories that really are important to be told to tell in this series, and that is the story of the Rings of Power and the story of the fall of Numenor, and they start making progress on that. Nevertheless, too much is all happening in one episode. All other episodes proceed as a snail's pace, and then all this stuff happens. So anyway, it's kind of interesting what they have going on with Celebrimbor and Sauron, but I don't think the actor who plays Sauron is really pulling it off. I mean, it's a terribly difficult part to play, of course, but between the writing being kind of so-so and his acting and Celebrimbor's actor, he's doing a very good job acting. Despite the dialogue, or in fact, or despite the fact that he's not really playing the character that he ought to be playing. I mean, he's just too old for the part. But anyway, at least they're dealing with this topic of the relationship between Annatar and Celebrimbor. So interesting. I was interested to see what they were doing, even though I don't really like a lot of the things they're doing. And then they're getting into the forging of the 9 rings. Quite interesting. There's a scene, though, where this elven smith named Merdania, she puts on one of the rings and becomes invisible, and she's doing all this stuff. And then she seems to be creating havoc, and she even looks like she's attacking Celebrimbor with a hammer. At least you find that out when he pulls the ring off of her finger. But then nobody seems to question the fact that why she was going crazy. It's just like as if it didn't happen. So I don't understand that. Then interesting stuff's going on with the king in Khazad Dûm putting on the ring, but again, it's all proceeding too quickly. He starts to become crazy right away, and the Balrog is waking up right away already, and everything's happening too fast. Balrog doesn't wake up for another several thousand years, right? Anyway, there's this strange scene where Disa is in the marketplace with her husband Durin the Fourth, and she buys this like geode ball, amethyst crystal, I think. It's very beautiful, but it is awful what Durin the Fourth says when he says 200 for a bloody rock. I mean, that's for a laugh. They sacrifice having the audience learn about how much dwarves treasure beautiful rocks. I mean, think of Gimli becoming the Lord of the Glittering Caves, and how he said, "Oh, it's so beautiful, we would just take care of it." I mean, and the relationship they have with Aule, who they talk about Aule, but what about what Aule really represents? The arts of the earth. No dwarf would ever say that. So just for a cheap laugh, they sacrifice world building. I really dislike that kind of thing in this show. Yeah. Anyway, at least they're developing a little bit more now what the real reason for Numenor to go against the elves or to go against the Valar, and that is their envy of immortality. They finally start touching on that. But on the theme of immortality and so on in Numenor, I don't think it's quite accurate at all to have there be shrines and priests, a priesthood on Numenor. That's just against what Tolkien envisioned for them. The king was the only kind of priest in Numenor, and the only shrine was the top of the Menel Tarma, the beautiful mountain in the middle of the island. So I think also they didn't have kind of superstitious beliefs about that the souls can only be released if this statue is stored after these prayers have been offered. Tolkien didn't envision that kind of thing for Numenorian culture. And speaking of Numenorian culture, if you haven't read this book, I really recommend it. Edited by Carl Hostetter. It came out after this series was started to be created, so there's a lot of lore about Numenor in here, and unfortunately, it hasn't been incorporated into the show at all. One of the things we found out was that Numenor had no cavalry. Actually, they were such a horse-loving culture that it seems that they wouldn't want to risk their beautiful horses in war. But they did engage in lots of sports with horses, as well as sports in the ocean, water sports, and fishing was a big part of their culture. And a lot of very interesting things you can find out about Numenor in this amazing book. And unfortunately, it starts off with a lot of things about elvish longevity and things. But Carl Hostetter says, you don't have to read this book in order. And that's what he says in the introduction. And then I don't recommend reading it in order. I recommend looking at the table of contents and going straight to the things that you think are interesting. Okay, so anyway, this episode was a lot less bad than some of the other ones. So I was quite happy about that. But nevertheless, I'm quite dissatisfied with some things about it. And I can't see this series ending up anywhere really satisfying for me anyway, the way things go. I wonder when the men start putting on their rings, are they gonna quickly transform into ring wraiths? I mean, it takes a long time for that to happen. So I don't have much to say about this episode, except for the fact that I'm saying I feel they don't really catch the Tolkienian idea of how magic works in this world, or what it means when they say the unseen world. I think if they want to know what the unseen world is, I think it just means the world of spirits, the souls, angels, whatever, these kind of things. That's what that is. It's not some kind of strange other alien world. So if Anatar is an emissary from the Valar, well, of course he knows that world. Why should this Smith Merdania be surprised when she says, "Oh, you have seen the unseen world"? So it's not this big special thing. I think again, it's like things that sort of misconceptions that are coming out from extrapolating from Jackson's films rather than from Tolkien's writing. Okay, well, that's all for today. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.